Good evening, family. Thank you for making it. I know, we said 7 sharp. You guys really was 7 sharp. Brother Abdul Haqq, nothing on you. I feel like it's Brother Brandon's fault. But welcome to our Vil Alchemy meeting. We have members of the Saturday Free School with us. So I appreciate you guys coming and joining with us. As some of you may know, we have been diving into Muhammad Speaks lately. And last week we read an article titled "An Old and Ancient People Speak of the Black Man." So we actually wanted to continue that conversation with you all. And Brother Brandon will be giving some remarks and dialogue.
Yes, thanks, babe. Okay. Greetings and welcome everybody to this special study group discussion by Viet Lao Khmer. I want to take a brief moment to introduce who we are and why we put this meeting together. Viet Lao Khmer is a reading group that is dedicated to understanding the common heritage shared between the people of Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, the anti-colonial movements of the darker nations, and the great freedom struggles produced by Black America. We study the liberation movements of darker humanity to become the new man and the new woman who exemplify the values of a new world that is in the process of being born. We want to make a contribution to the upliftment of our communities. So we study the likes of Ho Chi Minh, Fidel Castro, Sukarno, Prince Norodom Sihanouk, James Baldwin, Martin Luther King Jr., W.E.B. Du Bois, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and others who have struggled for a world that is governed by the principles of positive peace and universal brotherhood. We are anchored in the ideological foundation of the Saturday Free School for Black Philosophy and Liberation, which takes place every Saturday, 10 a.m. at the Church of the Advocate in North Philadelphia. There are three main reasons why we organize this dialogue. First, we want to build unity with the Nation of Islam and cultivate mutual understanding between our communities. For too long, the relationship between the Black and Asian American communities has been undergirded by white supremacy, hijacked by nonprofit organizations and political parties which aim to turn us against our collective interests. The model for Black and Asian unity that is proposed by social justice organizations is oftentimes an unprincipled unity that serves the US government's war agenda. The enemy has found new ways to impose on us a perpetual state of victimhood and perceived powerlessness. We hope that this discussion will be an example for others to follow, because it is a discussion that is not rooted in the ideologies of the ruling class, and it is not mediated by the ruling class. Rather, it is a discussion that aims to anchor our people in the rich tradition of our freedom struggles and seeks to build a revolutionary unity that transforms our people into courageous and moral human beings. Second, we must make clear what side our people must stand on. When Black people fight for freedom under US imperialism, they are simultaneously fighting against the common enemy which oppresses all of humanity. So to stand with Black America is to stand with humanity. Asian Americans must undergo a serious reappraisal of our moral, spiritual, and political trajectory in North America. We must call into question the Asian American identity and whose interests it ultimately serves. The invention of whiteness has partitioned us from the world. It keeps us trapped within Western definitions of manhood and womanhood, thus preventing us from achieving a moral identity. By the standards of the American dream, The success of the immigrant is defined by how distant they are from the Black struggle and the anti-colonial movements of their motherlands. Our ideological position dictates our self-conception. Don't think that we are just using fanciful language for the sake of sounding smart, or that we are partakers in intellectual masturbation. Your ideas dictate the way you see yourself. The way you see yourself dictates your purpose and the way you act and relate toward others. Whoever wins the battle of ideas wins the future. We assert that anti-Blackness is unnatural, and we can only know ourselves insofar as we know Black America. When we become one with Black America, we throw off the lens of the white supremacist worldview and reclaim the agency to see ourselves as we truly are, and thus grow into our full potential. We are guided by the belief that, in the words of Martin Luther King Jr., we are all wrapped, in a single garment of destiny. Third, we seek inspiration from the liberation movements of Black America. We seek inspiration from the liberation movements of Black America. The Nation of Islam has stood up to the most powerful and evil system of oppression in world history under the leadership of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Yet the men and women of the nation remain unbroken and uncompromised. The soul of a people dies when they acquiesce to the standards of an unjust system and a morally corrupt ruling class. So we study the Black liberation movements also for a new sense of life, because the spirit of love, undying faith, and courage is needed to push us forward in our struggle for a new civilization. So before we introduce our special guest today, I want to give a little backstory. The video that we actually played in the beginning of this meeting is actually what caught my attention. Before I had seen him, around social media, Facebook, Instagram, and, my first reaction was, wow, like a young minister in the Nation of Islam. And, once I saw that video, we were just so inspired by it, the way that they were talking to the brothers in the street, and, the strength and the courage that they displayed in the Saviors Toward Newark video. And to make a long story short, I had contacted student minister Abdul Haqq on Instagram, told him that we come to the mosque. Chanda and I, started coming, and, we just felt so spiritually uplifted by the services. Student minister Abdul Haqq's lectures were great, but it was also the warmth, the kindness, the generosity, and that strong spirit that we were met with, when we attended the mosque. And ever since then, student minister Abdul Haqq has been a great helper, a great friend, a great spiritual uplifter. And we really look forward to the relationship, that we're building. So it is with great honor that we welcome our brother and comrade. He is the leader of the Nation of Islam's Muhammad Mosque number 25 in Newark, New Jersey, under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, student minister Abdul Haqq Muhammad. Welcome, brother.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you immensely. You, your wife, and all of your fellow comrades, and the work that you've been putting in the Philadelphia area. I'm greatly appreciative of all that you've done, your kind words. And, on behalf of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I want to thank you and everybody who has been visiting the mosque, learning more, striving to learn more. I'm greatly appreciative of it. Forgive me if I seem a little nervous or jittery. My teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, has taught us that man was not made to handle praise. And he talked to us about the poison of praise, and he said that praise becomes poison when man begins to seek it. So the oft-repeated phrase you'll always hear the Muslims saying is, all praise is due to Allah. All praise is due to Allah, because we believe that no man or woman is worthy of true worship or praise but Allah. And when we submit our will to do his will, then oftentimes he allows us to bask in that praise and receive some of that praise. But man, in seeking it, he can become self-destructive. So your words were very generous, and I'm honored by your words and your sentiments. But I definitely feel unworthy, even to be on this call with this august body of brilliant men and women. I feel unworthy, but by God's grace, I'll do my best to strive to answer any questions and give any insight that I possibly can from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Abdul Haqq. But again, thank you again so much.
Yes, sir. And we're very honored, to have you in this dialogue, in this study group. So we just wanted to get started with, getting to know you a little bit before we go into the more, intense part of the meeting. Let's start with the question, what were you like as a young man growing up in Newark, New Jersey, and how did you join the Nation of Islam?
Well, I was very athletic. I thought it was my purpose in life to be a musician. I like music. I was a writer of music, a producer of music. I believe I was very musically inclined, and that was going to be my lot in life, to be a performer or entertainer. But as God would have it, that's not what I was destined to do. But of course, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, a fairly decent neighborhood. When I was coming up, there was still a degree of community. During that time, the early 90s, it wasn't as, I would say, fragmented as it is now in terms of where I'm from. But I felt that there was warmth, there was love, everybody knew everybody. There was not a lot of violence, particularly on my block or in my neighborhood. Maybe in the surrounding areas there were, but I never really experienced it. I believe that I was sheltered from that, heard stories, saw the news, read the news of things that were happening in the surrounding area, but I never was truly impacted or affected to the degree that I've seen other young men and women who I went to school with was impacted by violence and crime and drugs, et cetera, et cetera. So I had a pretty, I'd say, normal, regular childhood. It wasn't as detrimental, as I saw other youth who were around me was. So I would say I had a fairly decent upbringing in the city of Newark, New Jersey, although it is called the Brick City and it can be rough at times. We made the best of the situation and the circumstance that we were given, where we were. We made the best, out of the environment. Somewhat we were close knit. We strove to be the best that we can be at that time with the limited knowledge that we had. My family, friends, extended family. So just growing up like any other young Black male, in the city of Newark, New Jersey, there are always risk factors that you have to be mindful of, certain places that you shouldn't go at certain times of the day, certain times of the night. So I navigated pretty well, I think, coming up. Never was arrested, never did any drugs, although I was around all of that, had friends, suffered from all of the regular peer pressures, but as God would have it, I just never delved into cigarettes or weed or alcohol or even was attracted to that. Members of my family did that, but I never was, inclined to smoke or to drink or to do drugs, or even to be, in a gang or anything like that. I just never inclined to do that. I was a fairly decent student. Went to Cleveland Elementary, which is in Newark. Then I went to Howard Wilson, which was my junior high school. As I shared with you, Brother Brandon, when I was in high school, my sixth grade teacher was very influential in introducing me to history, the autobiography of Malcolm X. I was still very dense, very naive at that time, but later I would realize that what he was doing was dropping a seed. He was, making me fertile for when I would be introduced to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So he did give me, you know, a degree in terms of the knowledge of myself, our history, you know, and it impacted me. It really did. And I think that it protected me. You know, once I graduated from junior high and got into high school, a lot of the lessons that he gave me, you know, the concern, the time that he spent with me, I can say that it really did protect me from making moves that other of my peers was making, that, you know, deep down inside, there was a voice, something was fed, you know, that prevented me from, you know, doing a lot of unscrupulous things that many of my peers were doing. So he had a very profound impact on my life, my sixth grade teacher. You know, but went to high school, was a fairly decent student, was quote unquote gifted in talent, tip student, but being in high school, it wasn't, again, the best high school. It was a decent high school, but in terms of the curriculum, I didn't see myself, you know, and it just wasn't interesting. So, you know, as I got older, matured, 10th grade, 11th grade, played football, thought I wanted to do that. But, you know, after I became a senior, I just lost interest and graduated high school. And, you know, from there, I just was wayward, trying to find my way. Thank God I didn't get arrested or get into trouble. I did begin to think that I wanted to dabble into maybe some drugs, carrying a gun, you know, but I knew deep down inside that these things was not appropriate, nor were they right. So I didn't delve too much into that. But being idle, just being around as a young man, the chances and the opportunity for me to get into, you know, those unsavory behaviors was there. But God protected me, and I didn't go too far along that line. So being out, being curious, you know, I knew that there was something more. When I saw Black folks engaging and doing, deep down in my soul, I knew that we were better than this, that there was more to life than what I was seeing and what I was accustomed to hearing, and the environment that I had grew up in. I knew it was something more. So again, being curious, I just began to seek and look, you know, for something else. And by God's grace, one day I was downtown Newark by a historic bookstore, which is still there, the source of knowledge. And I saw a brother who was very clean. He was very unlike nothing that I had ever saw. He had a car. He was playing, you know, someone. I would later learn that that was the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He had some papers. He was very courteous, very tolerant, very patient, very loving, very warm, you know, very cultured and very refined. And we're talking about downtown Broad and Market. You know, so he stood out like a sore thumb, you know, and I went to see him, and he began to explain to me the man that I was hearing in the car, shared with me the paper. And, you know, I was very intrigued, and I began to frequent that bookstore very often. And then going in there, I discovered Message to the Black Man by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The brother shared with me some DVDs from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, you know, and from there, the rest is history. You know, I went to the mosque, and I became a registered Muslim and follower of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. After meeting that brother and, you know, really delving into the teachings, I knew that this is what I had been looking for. This is what I had longed for. I was kind of upset that I had never heard of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In all my 22 years at that time on the earth, 1995, I heard about the Million Man March. And again, I was 10, but, you know, I just don't recall hearing anything about the Million Man March or just Minister Farrakhan in general. But later I would learn that that was all by design, that he taught us and told us that the media had did all that they could to keep him away from the youth for 20 years. Because in the early 90s, the minister was he was a sought after speaker on many college campuses. He was all over the news, many different shows, Donahue, Nightline, 60 Minutes, so many shows the minister was on, propagating the faith, bringing clarity and giving understanding about the nation of Islam and who we are and what we are. And during that time, he attracted many people to him And our open enemy did not, want that to happen. So they did all that they could do to really, separate him from the masses of Black folks in terms of giving him media coverage. But by God's grace, we plan and God plans, and surely he's the best of planners. So I believe it was all by design. I discovered him when I was supposed to. At that time, I was ready. And I gave my whole being to the study and teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because, it was just so profound, so magnetic. It had so much light in it. Again, the concepts that I was reading about, I had never heard these type of concepts about God and the Black man and who we were and who we are, the language, the Asiatic Black man, and learning history about the earth and different planets. I mean, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are very broad. They're not narrow. Although sometimes those who are introduced to the teachings, we can become narrow because it does have a nationalistic aspect to it. But that's just the aspect and the degree, but it's not the totality of the teachings. But again, we are taught that we first have to be taught the knowledge of ourselves, and then will we be able to understand others and that which surrounds them. And the minister have always taught us about education. And he said, if I take a picture and I show it to you, who is the first person you're going to look for? And we said ourselves. And he said, exactly. When you are being taught, the first person you look for is yourself. You want to know your relevancy and what you are learning about. So when we come and we hear of, just the majesty of Black people in terms of the way we were, what we did, and what we contributed to civilization and humanity, it can be very, very exciting and very, very inspiring. But like everything, it has to be balanced. And that's what the minister has always been striving to give us, is balance. Even with the majesty of the teachings and all that we learn as it relates to ourselves, there's a phrase in the teachings that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad give us: self first, then others. And the minister says self first, then others, not self first and nobody else. He said, because it is learning or looking at self in the extreme that produces race consciousness and ultimately racism. So man and woman, we are social beings and we live in a society with others. So we have to respect ourselves along with others who share the spaces that we are in. But in order for us to adequately respect ourselves and others, we have to know something of ourselves and the others that we are sharing space with. All praise is due to Allah, my brother and sisters.
Yes, sir. And what age did you join the Nation of Islam?
I was 22 years old.
Wow. Okay. And in our reading group, we watched Minister Farrakhan's speech about finding your purpose. I think it's called "Blessed Are Those Who Discover their Purpose." And Minister Farrakhan talks about how he had to sacrifice his music to pursue the truth, to pursue his purpose in the spiritual. Joining the Nation of Islam at 22, man, that's a young age. There's a lot of things that temptations around. I mean, for a young man, what is something that you had to give up? And once you gave up those things, how did the teachings transform you into a better man?
Sin, my dear brother and sister, doing that which is contrary to the nature of self, sin, I would say, sin. And being in a sinful world, sin is a big thing to give up. Again, not that we don't have shortcomings and weaknesses, but that's very pronounced when you come into the Nation of Islam, striving to be morally correct, to be ethically sound. That's very pronounced. Again, we live in a world that is diametrically opposed to righteousness. goodness. So again, it can be difficult because the world that the white man has made is one that is in direct contravention to the divine will and laws of the original people and the God of the original people. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that Satan makes mischief with created things, that many of the things that God has created for man's benefit, he teaches us that Satan takes it and he makes mischief with it. Things such as sex, food, these things are natural to us and we need them. But Satan uses these things again to wreak havoc and to reap or seek the destruction of the original people. So I really would say sin because again, I wasn't a smoker, I wasn't a drinker, and I really wasn't, Brother Brandon, believe it or not, a philanderer and a fornicator. You know, of course, there's some fornication, but it's not like I was a womanizer. You know, it's not like that was a serious monkey that was on my back or drugs. You know, so it was sin, but just overall, you know, sin. I would say that, my dear brother, sin, you know. Yes, sir. Again, I wasn't really into music at the time. You know, I was just trying to find my way as a young man, trying to discover my purpose. Why am I here? What am I to do? What is life about? You know, so when I discovered the teachings, man, I was so excited and so enthused to learn what I was learning and to see what I was seeing as it relates to the example that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was demonstrating. The dietary law, man, you can eat 1 meal a day, you can fast for 5 days. I had never heard this before. So again, you know, being as inquisitive as I was, I used to spend hours in the library, 6, 7 hours, just studying. I mean, I had nothing else to do. You know, at the time I wasn't working, you know, so to me, it was an opportunity to really apply myself to what I was learning and what I was falling in love with. You know, so I just thank God that you know, he permitted me to find the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because I think about many of our young people and I think about where I was and how being idle and doing nothing, there is a great opportunity for you to get into things that in the long run can be a detriment. So it's only by the grace of God that, you know, my peers wasn't as in the street or wasn't as into drugs or crime, you know, as they could have been. So that was a shield and a protection also. But I could understand being a young, you know, man and not having, you know, a strong family support system and just being out here trying to find your way and not being properly educated as it relates to your history and the knowledge of who you are, what is expected of you. You know, so I can just only imagine that was, you know, years ago. And now the world has become even more, I would say, wicked and evil. You know, so you know, I really strive my best to understand our youth and do all I could do, you know, to be a light for them, you know.
Yes, sir. And one more question before we open up to a Q&A. I remember one time you mentioned that the struggle is beautiful, the beautiful struggle. What has been the most beautiful thing about your journey to self-discovery and serving under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan?
I would say being able to help in the capacity that I'm helping. You know, I never saw myself as a teacher, as one who was articulate. Again, I loved music. I could put words together. And all I ever wanted to do was just help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You know, and being able to do that in the capacity that I'm doing it, I'm honored. You know, I'm humbled. Again, I served in various capacities in the mosque. I was a lieutenant, I was a squad leader. So I did all of those things because I just wanted to help. In Islam, we're taught there's no big eyes and little U's. and that we all have a purpose, and that everything that each one of us do is important. We don't believe in classism. So helping the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the capacity that I'm helping him, it is a dream, and I'm really honored. I definitely feel unworthy. I believe I am unworthy, but I just thank him for allowing me to help, and for guiding me, and for consistently being patient with me, very tolerant with me, in my youthful immaturities, sometimes thinking that, being at his table and talking, and being so excited to tell him what I learned, and he just listens and he nods his head and he guides us, in the beautiful manner in which he does. So I would say that, brother, just discovering, my gift to inspire and motivate people, has really been a blessing to me, dear brother.
Yes, sir. And man, when you said that, you had a passion for music and production, I mean, I think that's very obvious, judging by your lectures, man, because your wordplay game is crazy. Your wordplay is crazy, man. So it's
Wow.
clear that you have a love for lyricism, and even the way that you deliver your lectures is very poetic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
The Muhammad said that some of his best ministers would be those who had a knowledge of music, color, and I believe it's medicine. The minister kind of touches it faintly in terms of why, but I never really went into it in terms of the why, of that. But yeah, he did say that.
Yep. All right. So I think at this point, we can open up the Q&A. We have a lot of people in this room who attended Muhammad Mosque number 25 in Newark, and were able to witness a service, a lecture. So if you want to share some of your testimonies, or even ask Brother Abdul Haqq a question, or make a comment overall on the discussion, please feel free to do so at this point.
I can start with a brief comment. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a member of the Free School, and I haven't gotten a chance to go to the mosque yet, but I want to in the future. But really, I just wanted to say thanks for sharing your story, because I think it's really illuminating to me to see how the nation has influenced people, for someone who's grown up in the city or around the city, and just to see kind of what led you to where you are. It's a story that I won't forget. And something I also wanted to say is that when you were talking about how you found the nation when you were 22 and it was a big turning point in your life, it reminded me of how I found the Free School when I was 22, and I'm only 25 now. But yeah, I just resonated a lot with some of the things you said, like, having a natural curiosity and wanting to understand why things are the way they are, and just asking this enduring question, or very universal question of, like, why am I here, or what is my purpose? And yeah, I'm really grateful for the work that you guys do. And I hadn't known about the nation very much at all until Brandon shared with me more and more about it. So yeah, thank you, Brandon, for also organizing this meeting. And I'm glad that, basically we can have this dialogue together.
Yes, man. I'm so honored to be in your presence, and everyone who's on this line presence. I'm very honored. And again, I feel unworthy, to be here, sharing this space with you all. But I'm honored by God's grace that I am here with you all, that we can learn from each other, and aid and assist and help each other in whichever way we can. So I'm just as honored, I'm just as humbled, And I'm just as inspired by you all and what you are striving to do in the time that you are striving to do it, because these are unprecedented times, you know, for the whole of humanity. What we are seeing, what we are experiencing, what we are feeling. Uh, you know, the scripture says that these times are perilous. So we need each other, you know, more than ever. We need to converse and have dialogue more than ever. So I think that this dialogue and conversation and discussion is very necessary, you know, and I pray that we can have more in the near future.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to learn from each other. And yeah, I hope we get to work together more. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam. How you doing, my dear brother? Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Again. It's good to see you again. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I think there was somebody that wanted to speak before I interrupted.
You're good.
Okay. I guess one question I had, student minister, is I guess interacting with just the different generations when it comes to their original family members, like, you know, us, like Asians and everything. And I guess, how would you describe the difference in viewpoint from speaking with someone from the older generation, say like around your age and older, and then us?
Can you repeat the question again, dear brother? I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand.
So I guess what would be the difference in I guess openness when it comes to speaking to like the younger generation of like Asian Americans, opposed to like interacting with older Asian Americans or older Asian people? Just when it, I'm sorry.
No, I understand. I understand. I think
And
it's
finding
just,
that,
go ahead.
and finding that just that point of understanding.
Yes, sir. I think the difference is the experience of those who I'm talking to. So when you said the younger generation versus the older generation, I believe the younger generation is more open. We live in an information age where information is very accessible. We have social media, so we are not as divided and as separated maybe as we once were. So we on Instagram, we on Facebook, so we get a chance to look at each other, learn a little bit more about each other in terms of our cultural similarities and our cultural differences. So I think that's the difference. You know, we're in an age where, you know, the majority of us are online. So you have a lot of young Asian Americans who are online. Of course, a lot of Black people who are online as well. And we get to interact and we get to see each other. And I think that is one of the barriers that produces the disconnect, is that a lot of times we don't have time to really interact or see each other. You live where you live and we live where we live, but social media has broken down that barrier. So now we can interact more. I can look at your page. I can look at somebody else's page, and I can see your cultural point of view. I can see your struggles. I can see what you have gone through, and I can say, wow, we're not as different as I thought we were. I can see the commonality. I can see those who you follow and who are your leaders and what were their viewpoints and how they were trying to, you know, shape the hand of the oppressor off of them. And I can say, wow, we are not as different. We have more in common than we have that are different. You know, so I would just say it's the experience, you know, of the generations. I believe the younger generation has had more interactions and more experience with people like myself, you know. So you are more open to learning and to listening and to hearing, you know. If that answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, Brother Abdul. My name is Nathan, and
Hey,
I
can
have
you
a
show your
question.
face, bro?
Man, I'm sorry. I'm driving right now. I'm on the highway, so I don't want to hold up the phone like that.
Okay.
But I guess listening to your story, I'm 22 years old and I'm a young man as well. And I guess the question that comes to mind is, when I had just kind of found this knowledge as well through the free school, and I'm taking an interest in the Nation of Islam, and so very eager to learn and very eager to teach. And so my question is, when did you begin to feel ready to be able to teach other people and take up responsibilities as the student minister and other things?
You know what, brother? I have to be honest with you. When did I feel like I was ready to teach? Never. I feel that way now. I have to share with you all, Brother Brandon and everyone else, that when Brandon was playing a video of us being out in the street in the community, I kind of had to step away. It's very uncomfortable for me to hear myself teach. And I don't know why I feel that way. I just don't know. I don't know if it's something in my upbringing or my experience. I am confident with who I am and what I am, but to teach and to impart knowledge into human beings is a very sacred duty. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, and it's not something to be taken lightly or played with. So I take it very serious because I know what miseducation has done and can do, as we as a people have been miseducated. So I never want to forget or make a mistake in striving to enlighten and inspire and motivate the human being. So this is a very sacred duty that I have partaken in. But what does give me the courage to stand up and speak, not that I feel like I'm ready to teach, but what gives me the courage to stand up and do it is my love for my teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and humanity, because it's nothing like seeing a person who is down emotionally, maybe spiritually, hearing a word and then beginning to raise their level of consciousness. To me, it's nothing more gratifying than that, to see a person who is somewhat lost or who is not confident or their self-esteem is low. And then you begin to impart a word to them that now inspires them, that now uplifts them, that now makes them feel better about themselves, that makes them now feel that they can make it another day or another month. It's nothing more gratifying than that feeling. So I don't feel like I'm ready to teach, but I teach because, again, of my profound love for my teacher and what he has done for me and for many others, and him commissioning me to go out and give to others what he has given to me. So not that I really feel like I was ready, it's just the love that I have, for my people in specific and humanity in general, that makes me stand up, and do what I feel like I'm unworthy to do.
Thank you very much.
The long answer, brother. But I never felt in studying and reading like, man, I'm ready to go out here now. I never feel like that, even today, but it's the love that I have for what I'm learning and the passion and wanting to give it to others.
We have two people who raised their hand, iPhone and Eileen Tran. I think iPhone raised their hand first, but I don't know if it was an accident or not. You want to speak up?
Yeah, this is Jahan and Meghna. We're also driving, but Meghna has something she'd like to say.
Yeah, I apologize. I can't be on video. We had to drive to beat the storm that's coming to Chicago. So I apologize. I would really love to see everybody's face. I visited the mosque a few weeks ago to hear the minister's lecture on the crisis of the Black intellectual, which was just really one of the most like wonderful, clarifying speeches I've heard in a very long time. I just wanted to say that right now I'm studying the history of basically the non-aligned movement, the movement of darker humanity, to create a world without poverty, without hunger, without war, and all these movements for national liberation. And just really reading about the way the West behaved, the kind of meanness and ugliness and just lack of any kind of moral capacity. It just really resonates with the framework given by the Nation of Islam. And I just wanted to say that the kind of clarity that we get from listening to these teachings and the way it helps us understand the past is so valuable, because a lot of what's out there, what's being given to people by institutions like universities, what's on the news, it's all a complete lie. And so I just wanted to express my appreciation and just this idea that we need this clarity to understand our past and to understand what's going on today. So I just wanted to say that, because, you know, at first reading it, I mean, yeah, I just wanted to say that. You should.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that immensely. We appreciate that immensely. You know, we want freedom, and we want full and complete freedom, and we want justice, equal justice under the law. We want justice applied equally to all, regardless of creed, class, or color, because we believe in justice for all, whether in God or not. And we believe as others that we do equal justice as human beings, and we believe in equality as a nation equals. However, we do not believe that we're equal with our former slave masters in the status of freed slaves. We want equality of opportunity, and we want equal membership in society with the best in civilized society. And these are essentials, you know, for life and of life. And these are the essentials that we have been deprived of since the coming of the Caucasian. And now we are seeking to do all that we can to reestablish a universal government where we all can live in peace together. And we know that it's going to be an uphill road, and it's going to be a struggle, because we are taught that two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. And our nature is vastly different from the nature of the Caucasian. We are polar opposites, and he was made to do what it is that he has done and what he is doing. And as he knows that it is our time to rise and to shake off the shackles of colonialism and imperialism, he's not going to sit back and allow us to do what is necessary for us to do. So he's working at a fever pitch to continue to deceive the whole world. And we believe that many of his offers are hypocritical tricks that he is using to continue to deceive humanity. But we believe he was taught a science of tricks. He's very deceptive, and he's very crafty, and he's wickedly wise. And you cannot be an idiot or dumb or unintelligent and rule in the capacity and the manner in which he's ruling. So he has been a very formidable opponent for the original people. But again, he has had a set time to rule. He has ruled, and in ruling, he has, we're taught, deceived 9/10 of the whole planet Earth. But again, his time is up, and our time is now. And we have to do all that we can do to be, number one, his moral superior, because it is his primary aim and objective to make us unworthy to receive the benefit that we are promised to receive as a people. So he does all that he can do to, again, pull us down morally, pull us down in our behavior ethically. So we have to, again, gird up our loins and know that in this day it is going to be our righteousness that's going to sustain us. But thank you again.
Hello, my name is Eileen. I'm a member of Viet Lao Khmer, and I have no words right now. I'm still processing everything because Brandon was right. You're very eloquent, and I think everything is really resonating with me. And I hope I hear some of your music one day.
That was a long time ago, sister.
One day I'll meet you.
Yes.
This is mostly I'll start with a comment. When we were first watching the video, I've never went to Newark, New Jersey before, but
Eileen, you're breaking up. Okay. I think while Eileen,
I'll text
yeah, just
her,
text her.
try to get back.
While Eileen gets her Wi-Fi figured out, I think we can go to Jeremiah.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Jeremiah. I'm part of the Saturday Free School, and I was also part of organizing project and event that we did with Viet Lao Khmer earlier this year in March, which was about Korea, Vietnam, and Afro-America, and that was also my first like real encounter with the Nation of Islam, and that was the first time that I saw the power of the Nation of Islam and like the teachings, and as people have been saying, like what that means for people, but also how that, like how the nation, like it prepares people or puts people in a position where they can like cut through like the propaganda of like the ruling class and imperialism, and to actually see themselves in the struggles of darker peoples around the world. And I was reading through I think it was the Muhammad Speaks article that Brandon had shared about like a black, was it like an ancient people speak of the black man. And one thing that really struck me was that, you know, this message coming from like freedom fighters in Vietnam was saying like, we see ourselves in you, black people struggling for freedom. And I think people like Muhammad Ali also, you know, would say like, we see ourselves in the Vietnamese who are struggling against American imperialism. And something that struck me even watching the video of the Savior's Tour in Newark was how you were speaking and saying that even for the people that you're speaking to on the street, like in the Black community, there's like a process where, you know, people like Black people need to see themselves in their brothers, and that like the first like essential part of the word brother is other, and that like when Black people are killing each other, they're killing a part of themselves. And I don't know, I just felt like there was a very strong connection there, both in terms of like the Nation of Islam seeing itself in Vietnam, but also even what you're doing in Newark. And sorry, this is a bit of a long question, but it also connects to stuff that we've been interested in the free school recently with regards to Korea in particular. And I won't go into too much detail, but one aspect of the question of Korea, and as people know, I think Korea is divided into two countries currently, but the South is occupied by about 30,000 American troops, and then the North is, you know, the North. And we've been thinking about this question of Korean Americans in particular, who most often see themselves through they see themselves like through South Korea, but underneath that, they also understand themselves and their history through the white lens and through the American lens of their own experience in the war, even, which was started by the United States, which many people don't know. And so we've been trying to figure out this question of like, how can we encourage Korean Americans to actually have a true knowledge of self, but also to see themselves in the other, whether that's North Korea or even the Black freedom struggle in the United States. And so in that context, I wanted to ask you, like, what kinds of responses do you get from people when you make that argument of seeing, like, we need to see ourselves in the other, and that this is the path ultimately towards peace? Because I think one thing that we learned through the previous event about Korea and Vietnam and Afro-America was that the war agenda, which the American government operates abroad, also has ramifications for the violence that takes place within America, and that the war agenda is the same across, like, both internationally as well as domestically. But yeah, I was just curious about, like, what kinds of responses you receive when you're making that kind of argument.
Well, you know, oftentimes as a people, and I'm speaking particularly of Black people, you know, we are unconsciously incompetent, meaning we don't know that we don't know. So psychologically, oftentimes we are totally in the dark and we don't have a proper frame of reference because we've been cut off from our history. So our reference point are they who cut us off from our history. So the Caucasian has been the standard by which we measure and judge ourselves and everything that we see. So the scripture of the Bible says that my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And again, we ask in the nation, what knowledge? Because Black people in America are some of the most educated people that you'll find on the planet. However, the knowledge that we are destroyed for a lack of is the knowledge of self. So again, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have taught us that one of the first and most important truths that must be established in this day is our identity. Because as a people, we've been robbed of our complete identity. So he said that living under the rule of other than our own kind and self for the past 6,000 years has brought much misunderstanding, much not knowing, and many theories that have been used in many places. And the people have taken those theories that have been used in many places, but a theory is not true until it has been proved to be true. So when Master Fard Muhammad, the great Mahdi, came, he gave us a phrase, and it was accept your own and be yourself. Accept your own and be yourself. But we could not accept our own, nor could we be ourselves, because again, we didn't have a proper frame of reference. So this is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as well as the Honorable Minister Abdul Haqq, when we first come into the mosque, there's this great emphasis on the knowledge of who we are and not who the Caucasian said we are. Because we know that the Caucasian has come up with many theories as it relates to why we are Black, why we look the way we look, in order to justify their imperialism and their colonialism and their brutal hatred and murder, you know, of the original people. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have taught us that the wise man or woman is the one who makes a careful study of the past events of ancient and modern history, because the knowledge of the future is judged by the knowledge of the past. And if you don't know what was, you can't know what is, and you'll be ill prepared for what is yet to come. So this is why we have to take our people back to the beginning, because one of our great African scholars said that when you start Black history from slavery, everything else looks like progress. And oftentimes that's where we start our history from, because we wasn't taught the knowledge of who we were before we were kidnapped, Caucasianized, and Westernized and brought to the Western Hemisphere. But once we take our people back beyond the plantation of the South, then we can begin to see ourselves as we were before the advent of the Caucasian. Now we have a proper frame of reference and standard to measure our behavior, our expectations, Because when you don't have an identity, then you begin to follow what the social scientists call an identity script, right? Where you begin to fall victim to the expectations that society have given you. And that's what many of our people in particular are doing. So we are always showing them, this is not who you are or what you are, but this is what you was made into. And they say, how do you know? Because your behavior has a social genesis. We can go somewhere and see from whence came the behavior that you are now exhibiting. But if you look beyond you coming to this country, this never was you. And when we show our people that, that oftentimes resonates with them. A lot of times you may get, some kickback, some hostility, again, because we are comfortable in what it is that we are accustomed to. And this is why, my brother, you have to be very skillful with truth. Because you can have zeal, but you can't allow the zeal that you have for the truth make you become, I would say, insensitive to the individual that you are trying to raise. So you got to be wise in maneuvering and how you give truth, because everybody's not ready for it. They may, they may attack you sometimes because truth hurts none but the guilty. So you have to be skillful and very wise. And sometimes it takes a certain methodology in order to get the truth over that you were trying to get to the hearer. And I think that that's one of the issues with many of us who have a degree of knowledge. We have the knowledge, but we don't necessarily know the right procedure, right? We got the content knowledge, but we don't have the pedagogical knowledge, the how to implement and give to those that we are trying to give to and raise them. Because sometimes you can't come direct. Sometimes you may have to, go around. It just depends on, who you're talking to and how ready they are for what you want to give them. So, I mean, if that answers your question to some degree, but we just got to be wise and mindful because it is warfare. This is war. And not necessarily war with physical weapons, but truth is a weapon. And I got to learn how to fire it, right? I got to learn how to use the weapon of truth. So I got to learn how to implement it and what is the best method or the best practice. Everybody is different, so that's always the struggle with those of us who have knowledge. But if we have it and we can't get it to the people, then we got to make an agonizing reappraisal of the methodology. Man, that didn't work. We got to use another method or another approach or another avenue, to get this message to them. So I don't know how familiar you all are with Master Fard Muhammad, but he was a very light-looking man. But his father did that intentionally because he knew he was sending him to a people who had been taught to hate Black or dark-skinned people. So he had to make him, I would say, in a way that the people would readily accept him and how he can blend in with different crowds and listen and watch and monitor without being discovered. Strategy, skill, right? Because I got to get this message over. And I don't want to be rejected, so I got to have a certain look. And in having that look, man, our people accepted him, So to me, that's one of the greatest examples that I can give you in terms of, using skill and strategy to implement, a profound truth that needs to be implemented. But how do we do it? Who do we give it to? So, if I had to speak to a group of Asian brothers and sisters, I wouldn't necessarily go. I'll give it to Brother Brandon. Hey, this is for you. Because it's not necessarily about me, or the individual, it's about the objective and us trying to get this message over. And I believe that they will be more welcoming to him so he can fertilize the soil. And once he get them fertile and now they're ready and prime, come on, brother Haqq, talk to them. Now they're ready. So I'm just saying different things like that. We always got to be mindful of and thinking about, you know. So that's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Sorry
Thank you
for
so
the
much.
long answer, brother. I hope it answered or helped.
That was great. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful dialogue. Taking
Brother, no offense, brother Brandon, but I'm just trying to show how we got to use, you know, skill and wisdom. And, you know, I wouldn't go, I would send you. Remember, we're going to go talk to him. And when you get him ready, now you want to introduce me, you know. But if I'm not thinking, I just go and try to do it. And they may hear me, but I don't need a man. This truth is too profound and too necessary. We need to get a victory. So I'm sending you, brother, or your wife, if you will allow us. You know, I'm just saying. So that's how we got to be thinking. We just can't sometimes be straightforward. I know we have passion and we are enthused and we're ready, and, you know, but we got to just, man, be thinking like scientists, you know, strategizing, trying to establish a beachhead behind enemy lines, you know? So that's all.
Yes, sir. We're getting towards the end, you know, of the dialogue. Unfortunately, it's a beautiful
It's just getting good, brother Brandon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know,
Just-
we try and be, you know, respectful of everyone's time though. So, you know, brother Abdul Haqq, if it's okay, maybe 2 more comments, questions, and we could wrap it up.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Oh, we could go.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
You know how brother Abdul Haqq at the end he'd be like going, he'd be like, you know, we could so intimate. Like I'm feeling that too. But you know, everyone, we respect your time. We could hop off, go eat something, hop back on. I'm just kidding. But, yeah.
Bring you to him. We'll take 2 more questions. And then we can do this again. This don't have to be it. And brother Brandon, you know, I got other brothers who are in the ministry who would love to come and we, you know, call on other brothers to come and dialogue, and they would love to sit with the group as well. You know, we have the Nation of Islam, National Archivist, Brother Salam Muhammad, who I'm very close with. You know, he definitely can bring more of the artifacts and, you know, things about the nation that you all can see. So, you know.
Yes, sir. Next, we have Jake. Go ahead, bro.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Islam, brother Jay, good to see you again, my dear brother.
Good to see you again as well. Thank you. Hey, everybody. I kind of have a just simple kind of question. How do you keep up hope within the struggle? You know.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're taught scripturally that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. And, you know, God has made a promise to us that he would make all things new. And we believe that it is impossible for him to lie. Even though we may not see the fulfillment of what he has promised, we have faith and hope that what he said will happen, will come to pass. Again, we may not see it in our lifetime, but we understand the importance of the generations to come and what we are to do in helping make a way for them. And I think that oftentimes, Brother Jake, and I'm saying particularly we as a people, we can be very selfish. And we oftentimes suffer a lot of bystander apathy, where we see things happening in our community, in the world around us, and instead of helping, aiding, and assisting, we let others do it. Therefore, with every generation, it's like we have to start over. And God, again, has made a promise that he will bring in a new world, and the tyranny and the oppression and the colonialism and the imperialism and the hatred and the racism and all of these things that we suffer from, there will be no more. And I believe in that, and I have hope in that. And I'm going to do all I could do with the life that I have, you know, to be a weapon in the hands of God to dismantle, you know, this unjust system, even if I have to die in the process, because I want to make a world that's more suitable for my children, you know, for my wife. So to sit on the sidelines and to do nothing is treasonous. There's a saying that evil men are allowed to prevail and rule because good men do nothing. But my teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, said, I don't know how good the men are if they see evil men doing things and they won't help to stop. So can we really call them good? So, you know, my hope is in what God has promised. And I see every day the Western world falling. She puts up a front and a facade like she's strong, but she's not strong. Her economy is falling. Her educational institutions are falling. And believe it or not, her influence is waning. And the people are really waking up. But again, he's fighting like hell to keep us deceived and to keep us morally bankrupt. But this is why we have to do more of this, Brother Jake. We have to talk. We have to dialogue. We have to communicate. We are brotherhood. We are sisterhood. And we call it hood because when you are down, Brother Jake, it's for me to cover you, not to exploit your weaknesses or your frailties, but it's for me to give you a word for you to keep going. Because you be strong today, I'll be weak tomorrow, right? I'll be strong today, you be weak tomorrow. And it is the ebb and flow of us working together that keeps us up, you know, because there's ups in life and they're down in life, but no down is permanent, only if you have a down attitude. But this is a world that's designed to take your hope and to take your faith. But the disbeliever believes that which he sees present and not that which has been prophesied to come. So we can't be deceived by what looks like, man, there's no way out. There's always light in the midst of darkness, Brother Jake. And I want you to keep striving and dig deep into your soul, into your inner being, because everything you need is there. It's there for you, brother. But you just have to stop, think, examine yourself, your thoughts, why you're thinking what you're thinking, what's making you feel like there's no hope. I hope this gives you some hope, Brother Jake, that 2 people die every second. They say 107 people die every minute and 6,393 people die every hour. And since you didn't die a second ago, a minute ago, or an hour ago, Brother Jake, you should be grateful and thankful that you are still here to make right what's maybe not right. Because you can be gone. You know that, right? But you are not. And that's not coincidental. You here on purpose there, brother. And the more you live, then the more you discover that purpose and you discover yourself. But you have to keep living. Because when you're gone, you're out of here. You can't discover anything. But while you're here, you have a chance to look and to learn and to discover and to see, man, what am I here for? It's a struggle. It's an uphill road. And man seek the path of least resistance. Now, scripturally, Brother Jake, the Bible says, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. You heard that verse before, Brother Jake? You ever thought about, it says, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Are you and me shadowing death? Think about that. We're taught that the Caucasian is the personification of death. And since he made us into himself, we are like his shadow. because he represents death. And in following his way, his civilization, then we are like shadowing him. We are mimicking him and his lifestyle. But look, it says, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So the rod, the minister teaches us, symbolizes knowledge. See, thy rod, the more you know, it comforts you. But Brother Jake, when you go against the good of what you know, your knowledge then acts as a rod and it begins to beat you psychologically. It begins to accuse you because you're going against the greater good of what you know. So, you know, you got to walk through the valley, though, brother. You have to walk, meaning you got to do something. You can't just stand still and not do nothing. It's something you got to do. So I say, Brother Jake, get up and go do it, dear brother. Get up and go do it, man. How old are you, Brother Jake?
23.
How old?
23.
Oh, man, you 23 years old, or young, my dear brother. And brother, you don't even know what's in you, brother. You're 23. I don't still know what's in me, but it has to be excavated. The soul, the spirit, it has to be excavated, dear brother. So you got to keep living so that the beauty that's in you can be manifested, you know? So keep living, Brother Jake. There's too much to do, brother. So stay hopeful. Get you some hope, brother. Right?
Right. Thank you, brother.
Come on. Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Jake.
I want to keep it's less of a question because actually my question was similar to Jake's. So we must be on the same wavelength. It was going to be a question about disappointment and how you turn away from feeling disappointed in a time when I think a lot of people in the younger generation feel disappointed in themselves and also like things around them. But just for the sake of time, I just wanted to, it's less of a question, more of a comment. Hearing you speak in the video, but also just now about how important a sense of self is to ever understand anyone else. I just wanted to say how important I think it is, but also how much I think it's really impacted my life recently, because I think for the longest time, I always thought that I did know myself, where I was like, I'm not like other people, I do know myself. And I think that's the number one mistake, because I think in some ways, to think that you already know yourself, it means you're fearful to really know yourself and to know others. And I think it takes courage to be able to first say what kind of you're saying, which is to say, like, I want to know myself. And I say this because, like, I think this is related to what Patrick was saying earlier, and also what Brandon, you read out at the beginning, this thing that, like, for the longest time, I think I did believe this thing where, oh, Asians in North America, like, we are a people, we do know ourselves. But the first step is to say, I really don't think Asians in North America know themselves. We're a lost people. And I'm really grateful for dialogues like this, but also, like others have said, for the Nation of Islam, for the message, the continued message of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and also the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, because it gives us the tools to begin to actually know ourselves and begin to define for us what kind of people we are in this country, like who are we closest to. And actually, like what you had read earlier in the beginning, Brandon, which is, in order to have any hope of redeeming or saving our country or humanity, Asians on this continent have to first recognize that they're lost people. And yeah, I just wanted to say that because it's the same thing with me, even as an individual, how much I had thought I knew myself, but actually, like, it has been so freeing to have the courage and humility to just say, I don't think I do. And I'm looking to become more complete, and to just learn constantly from others, and to define for myself and not be defined by what a white society has always wanted me to be. So yeah, just thank you. And I'm looking forward to watching your other lectures online.
Thank you, my dear sister. You know, it definitely takes great courage. You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that one of the characteristics of every student is humility. And he teaches us that the hardest person to teach is the one who thinks that he or she already know, because that person will always use what they think they know to argue against what you're trying to teach them. You know, so it is very humbling to hear, you know, what you're saying and to hear what everyone on this call is saying. And it's very gratifying to hear the impact and the influence of the Nation of Islam on each and every one who's on this call, who are brilliant in your own right. You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan taught us that the human being is like an untapped reservoir, that there's so much depth to us, but we have been limited by artificial barriers and artificial names that don't really and truly define us. And he teaches us that your identity is really not your color, the landmass from which you came or originated, but your identity is the nature in which you was created. And since we were created in the nature of God, then our nature is God. But a lot of times I believe that as human beings, we become the side effects of what we have survived, because the experiences that we go through, they, to a degree, rob us, you know, of our nature. Not that the nature is no longer present, but the nature, it becomes somewhat dormant to a degree, because you begin to take on the weight of the experiences, and you begin to identify with the circumstances that you have been in, and the circumstances begin to define you. And then you begin to lose that sense of self, because you become a mere caricature of who and what God created you to be, which is to be a perfect reflection of Him. You know, so we have all had negative experiences in a world that was made for us to have negative experiences. So our identity really gets lost. And I think for the original people in particular, we have taken on the identity of our aggressor, where now we again see ourselves through him, and he has been gifted with the power to define. So he gives us labels that really limit us, limit our potential and what we could and what we should be. So we have to, you know, shake off the shackles of the labels and the titles that he has bestowed upon, you know, the whole human family. And I believe when we begin to do that, then we will begin to make greater progress and greater strides in discovering, you know, the beauty of self and the beauty of our soul and our humanity, because we are not yet human. Many of us, we are like beasts in human form, because look at the brutality that we exhibit on one another, and how we treat one another, and how we talk to one another, and how we handle one another. So the high level of apathy produces low level of empathy. And we are unable to empathize with our fellow human beings because the heart has been made cold, because we are living in a cold society, a society that's cold and that's callous and that's been brutal and vicious. So we haven't seen the best of ourselves as human beings. And in living in a society like this, it's very easy to lose hope. It's very easy to be disappointed. But my teacher said, can you get past the this to be appointed? Can you get past the this to be appointed? Because oftentimes we feel dissed by what happens to us, but we believe that it's only a part of God's plan. And if you can withstand feeling dissed or feeling rejected, then you can ultimately be appointed and exalted to do what it is that you need to do. But the human soul needs to be purified, and the way that we are purified is through trials and through tribulations, because life was not made to be easy. The human being has to struggle, has to go through difficulty in order to refine and be the best human being that we can be. So we can't let our struggle break the spirit and the will, you know, to be what it is that we ultimately can be. But we have to keep living. We must keep living, because if Malcolm had died at 22 or Dr. King at 22, a lot of the great men and women, Ho Chi Minh had died at 17. We would never get what we receive from these illuminaries and these brilliant men. So we have to keep living. And in living, we will be able to discover the best of ourselves. But if we die young and we die before it's our time, then we rob humanity to experience the gift that God put in each and every one of us to give to them. So we got to keep living. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, there's going to be moments when it's dark, but all of that is preparation, you know, for the great journey of success. So I want you to stay strong, my sister, and keep striving and know that you are not alone. And you are here on purpose, and you are where you are supposed to be, and that you are not a mistake in what you are learning and what you are feeling. You know, it's all by design. So keep striving to be positive and to be a beacon of light. There may be much rejection. People not going to understand. They may don't agree. But blessed is he and she who forges a way for others.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Hey man, we just letting your words marinate, man. This is a really good dialogue. Man,
Yeah.
so yeah, go ahead.
I personally want to thank you, Brother Abdul Haqq, for being so open and vulnerable with us and allowing us to do the same, but me personally be vulnerable in the mosque. My plan wasn't, I mean, not everyone knows, but I did definitely cried when I asked the question a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, oh, dang, I'm going to be known as the Asian girl in the mosque that cried. But, you know, it was the right place to cry and be vulnerable at, but also like to get the answer from Brother Abdul Haqq meant a lot to me. Yeah, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, dear sister. And thank you, Brother Brandon. But if I didn't experience something similar, man, how can I help? So I've been through something, you know, similar. Many of us have been through that, rejection by family and those who are close to us, you know, because we discovered something that was different, you know. Our family, a lot of times, were opposed to what we were getting, you know. And as I look back, a lot of times it's out of fear, you know, uncertainty. What are you into? We've been accustomed to following and doing what we've been doing our whole lives, and now something is, you know, a complete opposite, talking about different type of food and a lot of these cultural traditions that we follow and that we love, and now you talk, no, that's not right. You know, it's not easy. And it seems like the older we get, the more set in our ways we get. You know, the more calcified and the more hardened we become. So we're not as susceptible to anything new. You know, and that's why I believe a lot of times when you look at many of those who were freedom fighters, they were very young, you know, because they were, you know, they were more open to the new that was being introduced to them. And this is why we have to continue to go after our young people, because the behaviors that we see them exhibiting negatively, you know, if given the right message, and the right example, that same passion and spirit that they have in doing wrong, they'll have it in doing right. And this is why, again, our enemy, he keeps our young people distracted. He keeps our young people, living a life of, just debauchery and evil and filth. That's by design. He wants to keep our young people ignorant and lost to the knowledge of themselves, because he knows that he is worthy to be killed for what he has done to the original people. And our young people have the spirit and they have the courage, but they just don't have the wisdom. So he doesn't want us to marry their courage with our wisdom, because he won't have a chance. So again, he's working at a fever pitch to keep our young people ignorant, keep them deaf, dumb, and blind. And that's why, as hopeless at times as it seems, we can't give up on them, because they are our future. You are our future. This is a young group I'm talking to, but now we just got to figure out, how can we take what we have learned and what we are learning and package it, and give it to those that need it, But I really appreciate you all and what you have done and what you are continuing to do with the Saturday Free School. And man, we really need one in every city, No, seriously, we need one in every city. One in every city.
Yes, sir. I mean, maybe, we could start a Saturday Free School in Newark, man.
Listen, trust me, we definitely need it. No, seriously, brother. We definitely need it. We need it here, seriously, because it is like a launching pad to something that's very great, something that's very universal, And I believe we have to look at it like that, So we definitely need one in every city.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And, you're always welcome to come down to Philly any of these Saturdays, bro. Like I said in the beginning, we're honored to have you, and thank you so much for making the time to contribute to this dialogue. And yeah, bro, I mean, we appreciate you and your family.
I appreciate you all, and I really appreciate everyone that's on this call and your willingness, again, as Sister said, to be vulnerable. Man, there's no need to put up no fronts, We've been doing that for a long time, acting like something that we are not. That's not necessary. I believe it's going to be our sincerity that's going to win today. We all have fallacies. And my teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, said that with every gift, there's an accompanying flaw. And if you don't work on the flaw, then it'll overcome the gift, So this is why, along with all of what he's given us from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has given us self-improvement as the basis for community development. And in that, he says that there are three components that we must exercise: self-examination, self-analysis, and self-correction. And that's very important and very vital to sustaining our morality and our spirituality, spiritual self. So, I just pray that we continue to do all that's necessary to improve our morals, our psyche, our social, and everything else, brothers and sisters. So I really appreciate you. I can't wait till we do this again, And again, we got other ministers who I know would love to come on and be a part. So just let me know, Brother Brandon, and we'll set it up and make it happen.
Yes, sir. We're looking forward to it, man. I guess this concludes, part one of our meeting, our dialogue. And thank you, everyone, so much for making it today. And we hope to continue this dialogue in the future, because our possibilities and our potential is limitless. So thank you.
Thank you, dear brothers. Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.